speak German, but I can if you like.
Is wat niemand in ons der. Alles wie aansgeliefd lagen, die kan wie ons genoeg werden. Ik ben ausgeliefd klaar, niets kan met ons in ons der. Alles wie aansgeliefd lagen, Fräulein Wischewicke.
Hello! Guten Tag! Hi, what's up, hello? My name is Shane Lutz, and today we're going to talk about a little play by the name of Mother Courage and Her Children by Bertolt Brecht. The play follows Anna Fearling and her 3 children, Katrine, Eilif, and Swiss Cheese, as they pull their cart across Europe, following rival armies as the family cashes in on the spoils of battle.
Even as their world burns around them.
Brecht, he wanted to draw our attention to war as a byproduct of business as usual in a society that values money, efficiency, and capital over human life. But why should we care about a cathartic saga of wartime written by a German Marxist over 100 years ago, about events that took place over half a millennium ago, in parts of the world that most of us have never even heard of, let alone could find on a map?
Where the hell is Alsace-Lorraine?
Brecht wrote Mother Courage in Sweden during the rise of the Third Reich, and he deliberately wanted his audiences to draw parallels between the 30 Years' War, which had taken place in Bavaria and other parts of Germany almost 300 years earlier, and World War II, which had just begun on the European continent. But Brecht knew it couldn't stop there, otherwise people would leave the theater with nothing more than, war is bad. No shit, Johann. Brecht specifically wanted his audiences to actively consider the futility of war for the masses, and its deployment as a weapon of the ruling classes to achieve both capitalist gain and the suppression of the proletariat people. But what makes Mother Courage so fascinating is its role in a society where war has taken on so many new and insidious forms. Gone are the days of battle where armies would meet at noon in yonder field. Gone is the thunderous clashing of swords. And gone are the glorious days of battle when... Glorious days of battle? Glorious days of battle? When were they ever glorious? And that question is what lives and breathes and burns at the heart of Mother Courage. But these are big questions, and I suspect that we will get rightly wrecked if we try to check Brecht without a net. So to understand how all this fits into today, we need to go back to the 29 years, 11 months, 3 weeks, and 1 day that was the 30 Years' War. At the turn of the 17th century, the Protestants and Catholics were at each other's necks, like, well, always. And they fought quite a few wars to prove how much they hated each other. But in 1555, an attempt was made to settle everything by introducing cuius regno, eius religio, which is fancy Latin for, if you wear the crown, you get to choose the official religion. Sounds super fair. And if you weren't Lutheran or Catholic, then get over it, I guess? In 1617, Ferdinand II became the Holy Roman Emperor. Woo! And because he was Catholic, he revoked a law in Bohemia that granted Protestants religious freedom. Surprise, surprise, the poor Lutheran peasants revolted in 1618 and threw the administrative leaders of the region through windows. That's not a turn of phrase, they literally threw them out of windows. It's called defenestration, look it up. Suddenly, the Holy Roman Empire had a Bohemian revolt on its hands, and the 30 Years' War had begun. The conflict is separated into 4 unique phases: the Bohemian phase, the Danish phase, the Swedish phase, and the French phase. The Bohemian phase ended quite quickly, with Ferdinand II's troops crushing the poor peasants at the Battle of White Mountain in 1620. The conflict would have been resolved there as a short, local dispute, but both Catholic and Protestant monarchs across Europe kept a close eye on the events because drama was afoot. Believing that the Catholic Holy Roman Empire threatened Protestants everywhere, Denmark, England, Scotland, and the Dutch joined in an alliance against the Holy Roman Empire: Spain, Hungary, and Croatia. The Danish phase of the war kicks off with Denmark invading the Holy Roman Empire to the south. And the Danish phase of the war ends with Denmark losing terribly to the Holy Roman Empire in the south. It's 1629, and most of the fighting has taken place within the Holy Roman Empire, and it's centered around religious disputes exclusively. But in 1630, the Swedish phase begins as the Swedes saddle up for war. Good old King Gustavus Adolphus, who's a Lutheran, a commander, an all-around bad bitch, invades the Holy Roman Empire and wins the Battle of Brightonfield. What a fun time to be alive. The Swedish phase saw a departure from the religious conflict of the earlier phases, as France, a Catholic country, began to fund the Lutheran Swedes out of fear of the Holy Roman Empire's growing power. It's kind of like when Bernie endorsed Hillary because of Trump. Was it the best solution? No. Was it a solution? Not really. And this is where we meet Mother Courage, named Anna Fearling, and her 3 children, Eilif, her eldest son, Katrine, her mute daughter, and Swiss Cheese, the youngest of the 3. The King of Sweden is preparing to invade Catholic Poland, and his soldiers are in the small central Swedish province of Dalarna looking for recruits. Despite Mother Courage's best efforts to show both Eilif and the sergeant that death awaits them in battle, she loses her son to the recruiters. Katrine takes his place at the helm of the cart and joins Swiss Cheese as they go on, pulling the wagon behind them. They followed the Protestant army across Poland over the coming years. One night, the general's cook mentions the irony in exporting liberty to the Holy Roman Empire by taxing the people of Sweden. He's sure to mention that the rich, however, are unburdened due to their wealth. Mother Courage scolds him and affirms her faith in the king. He will never be defeated, and why? His people believe in him. And why? Precisely because everyone knows he's in the war to make a profit. If he wasn't, little people like me would smell disaster in the war and steer away from it. If it's business, it makes sense. Suddenly, the Catholics launch a surprise attack, and in an effort to recover the general's cash box at the urging of Mother Courage, Swiss Cheese is killed, shot with 11 bullets, his soft body riddled with holes. To save herself and Katrine, Mother Courage denies knowing the boy, raising a Catholic flag and renouncing the Protestant forces of Satan, and they go on, pulling the cart along. And then, the almighty Protestant king of the Swedes, Gustavus Adolphus, dies in 1632, and Sweden says, "We're out, best of luck." But it's okay, because the French decide that they want to run towards the fight, for the first time in history, and the French phase of the 30 Years' War begins. This phase marked the most bloody period of the conflict, where witch hunts and mass lynchings were carried out across Europe. The 30 Years' War had more casualties than the Civil War and the Napoleonic Wars combined, even though both sides were Christian. And by this phase, they were both Catholic. Back in Saxony within the Holy Roman Empire, Eilif is captured by Catholic forces and killed. The cook, Mother Courage's latest companion, does not tell her what has just happened. And so, as the tides of war shift again, Mother Courage celebrates the opportunity of battle, and they go on to catch up with the Lutheran forces, pulling the cart along. After 1635 until the end of the conflict, the powers of Europe played this war like a game of ping pong, with one side gaining an advantage before losing to the other, before making a comeback and inevitably failing again. The cycle seemed endless as war slashed, scorched, and burned through Europe. When the Catholics attempt to invade the city of Halle during the middle of the night, Katrine stirs the townspeople by banging a drum atop the cart. While she succeeds in rallying the Lutheran forces, she is shot and killed by the imperial troops. When Mother Courage, who was in town hunting for bargains, returns to the wagon and sees her daughter, she chooses to continue following the ragged armies. Still unaware to the complete decimation of her family, she goes on to find Eilif, pulling the cart along behind her, alone. In 1648, the Treaty of Westphalia is signed, and there is no clear victor of the 30 Years' War. Technically, we could call this a French victory because the Holy Roman Empire became permanently weakened, and France gained considerable territory while gaining independence for its Dutch and Swiss allies. With Katrine's death in 1636, we know the unwritten ending to Anna Fearling's life can only unfold one of two ways. She either follows the armies for the next 12 years, profiting, albeit barely, off the militant desecration, or she joins her children, consumed by the same leviathan of war that offered a glimmer of false hope when the fighting began so long ago. So, between Europe's unique history, its relationship with wartime, and the complexity— I'm bored.
When are we gonna talk about Brecht?
That's literally what we're about to do. Yay! Roll the clip. My Name is Bertolt Brecht. I was born in Bavaria, in southern Deutschland, in 1898, zu a Protestant Mutter und a Catholic Vater. When I was 16, the Great War began. And while I was excited in the beginning, I watched meine Freundin become swallowed by the army. I was always expelled from school for saying that only the empty-headed person could be made to die for their country. Und Scheiße, was I incorrect? I tried to escape the war. But I was drafted in 1918, where I worked in Bavaria, in my hometown, for 4 weeks. And then, the war was over. After that, I got married, and had a son, and studied theater. Theater. The theater. You know, one of my greatest influences is Georg Buchner. What a genius. Oh, und that play of his, Wozzeck, oh, ausgezeichnet. I bet if it were translated, updated, und performed for a modern audience, it would be sehr gut. But, what do I know? Oh, nein. Later on, I wrote many plays, did some work for film, und I started seeing not eins, but 2 ladies after meine wife und I divorced. Und then, I read Marx, und a neue art form that sought to alter society, und the world was born in the fires of mein heart, mind und soul. Es ist the epic theater. The epic theater. After spending the 1930s trying to warn the German people of Hitler's rise, I moved to Stockholm, Sweden on the eve of the Second World War in 1939. Despite my best efforts, I guess the German people did not see Hitler coming. It was here, in my self-imposed exile in Stockholm, that I wrote Mother Courage and Her Children, while war burned across the horizon of the world. Ja. We got it. Yeah.
Brecht. Bertolt. Alienation. Befremdungseffekt, German for the effect of making strange, or alienation. Brecht believed audiences were being manipulated by the theater, and so he developed a method of helping spectators understand the complexities of politics, history, and society.
Brecht assigned the audience an active role in the production by creating theatrical effects that were strange or unusual, forcing the spectators to ask questions about the world, both on and off the stage, in their own lives. So what is alienation? 1. Projections that include captions and illustrations detailing the plot of the upcoming scene so an audience couldn't be surprised. That's alienation. 2. Breaking the fourth wall. That's alienation. 3. By not hiding the lights, curtain ropes, and other elements of the stage itself, the audience is constantly reminded they are seeing a play. Or when a robot narrates a dramaturgy presentation. That's both alienation and ironic. 4. Brecht used something called social jest, which is very different from psychology gesture. It highlights an equal social power. All the workers in an office might throw themselves down on the ground in a key bow every time the boss walks in. That's alienation. 5. Historicization. It's when you write a play about something that happened a long time ago or in a faraway place, but it intimately speaks to the current political and social climate. That's alienation. 6. Songs that summarize events and drove home thematic motifs. Like in Mother Courage, how they're always singing about how capitalism will kill you. That's alienation. And speaking of songs,
Nope, I'm not gonna do a musical number for you, even though Brecht loved to put music in his plays. Besides, that song doesn't even fit here. Well, no. Who do I think I am? Meryl Streep? Speaking of Meryl Streep, she played Mother Courage in the 2006 production in New York City at the De La Corte Theater. And because it's Meryl Streep, you'd think that it would be one of the most amazing productions of all time. But critics and audiences didn't really understand what the play was trying to do. Here's a review by The Observer. The author calls Brecht's work demanding, and even claims this translation is not trying to be anti-war, but instead exists solely as a thinly veiled criticism of George Bush because of the cook's one line, "But it's expensive, Liberty." The critic goes on to complain that the music and the script don't complement one another, even though it's kind of like that's the whole point. And while they fawn over the romance between Mother Courage and the chaplain, which is barely there, if at all, the reviewer never even mentions her children by name. The New York Times writes, though the playwright's trenchant vaudeville of diatribe, song, and morality play is routinely acknowledged as a masterpiece of modern drama, it's the kind of classic that audiences would rather admire from a distance than actually expose their eyes, brains, and backsides to for 3+ hours. And then they called Tony Kushner's playwriting lumbering. So what gives? Well, when the play debuted in Zurich in 1941, Brecht was livid with the reviews by the critics. They were compassionate towards Mother Courage. They were sympathetic to her as a victim of her circumstances, but they didn't seem to understand that she was complicit in the business of warfare. Brecht wrote, audiences did not see Mother Courage's crimes, her participation, her desire to share in the profits of the war business. They saw only her failure, her sufferings. One of the main reasons I think the De La Corte Theater's production with Meryl Streep was received rather tepidly was its proximity to the War on Terror. It had a lot of references to what was going on in America and the Middle East at the time. And this is not a play about one war at one specific location affecting one specific type of people. It's about all war, all the time, all people. And the main setting of the play, the 30 Years' War, is lost on American audiences. We don't have the same relationship to that conflict that Europeans and especially Germans do. In America, our conflicts are across the water, they're across time, they're far away removed from us. Except for the Civil War, which actually in 1980, Wilfrid Leach directed a production of Mother Courage set during the Civil War, trying to focus specifically on American elements of identity. It also featured Anna Deavere Smith. John Beaufort wrote, Miss Shangay has transported Brecht's didactic drama from the Europe of the 30 Years' War to the American Southwest of the 1860s and 70s. Most of the characters are Afro-Americans instead of Europeans. While some changes are more accountable than others, the adaptation remains generally faithful to Brecht's episodic plot as Mother Courage and her doomed offspring trundle their settler's wagon from one battle scene to another. Relocating the itinerant action in Texas, the Oklahoma Territory, and similar frontier points enables this Mother Courage to assail white America's treatment not only of the ex-slave population, but of the American Indian. The play's success clearly comes through its ability to communicate with an American audience differently than the play's original text. So how do we make this play relevant to American audiences again? Do we update the setting? Do we rehistoricize it? Do we try to make it feel more modern? But doesn't all of that somehow lose an element of Brecht's storytelling, what he was trying to achieve? So what on earth do we do here? Like every other gift that Brecht gave the world, every answer just provides 11 new rabbit holes to dive down. Mother Courage is experimental, it's political, and it's relevant to today. It just needs a director who knows how to translate it from then to now, from there to here, from what it was to what it could be. And I think I know just the director.